Cool. All right. So thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome again to the SICS Seminar session, and this is session 2 of 2025. For those of you who don't know me, and I'm sure there are people who don't know me because I'm not that famous. My name is Anita Dewi. I'm one of the lecturer in the Information Studies at the School of Information and Communication Studies at CSU, and I'll be guiding you through today's session. It's a very exciting session. I also have here with me my co-organizer for the seminar series, Kay Odoni, who is joining us. This is the first session that we're going to be working together, I guess, going forward. Before I start, I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of country. So we would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri, Ngunnawal, Kundangara, and Biripai peoples of Australia, who are the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which Charles Sturt campuses are located, and pay respect to their elders, both past and present. So today we have a very special presentation. The title is already intriguing and super interesting, and I'm sure I'm going to be learning a lot, and I'm from Nilu today, and as well as you are as well. It's Introduction to Multispecies Information Science. I'm not going to read the abstract. You have read that abstract, I assume, but I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction to Nilu, or Niloofar Solhjoo. Is a new lecturer at the school, at our school here at CSU. She's originally from Iran, and Nilu, that's how we call her, specializes in information behavior studies and human-animal information engagement. She supports multi-species information science, advancing it as an emerging paradigm within library and information science. And Nilu works with organizations such as AVI and the European Veterinary Libraries Group, and serves on the Community of Oceania chapter of ACIST. In her academic work, Nilu integrates arts-informed and sensory approaches using methods like video production and exhibition curation to bring her research and teaching to life. So without further ado, let's hear from Nilu, who's going to be sharing your slides as well, Nilu. Yeah, so I'm handing over the microphone to you.
So is this slide out there?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the introduction of multi-species information science. I think that you are about to listen to a new narrative about library and information science, and I'm really excited to sharing this with you as my new colleagues in CSU, and thank you for this opportunity. First, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, which I'm meeting you today, and I really recognize their continuing connection to the land, water, and community and the knowledge systems here, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. First, let me to set the context for my presentation. And I believe all our stories, I mean, everything we do as an information scholar and as an information researcher should be start with a famous article, The Invisible Substrate of Information Science, written in 1999 by Marcia Bates. Bates introduced the concept of the red thread of information, as we are always looking for that red thread of information in the social textures of people's lives. It is a metaphor of information as an approach, as a way of doing, and as a way of understanding life, human actions, knowledge systems, technology, or any aspects or any existence in our world. So I want to emphasize that this red thread of information, it waves through every practices, and we study those practices from the universe of information, or as she conceptualizes, universe of documentation. So how she or we all understand information is, first, it is the pattern of organization of matter and energy. And as a second level, the information is the patterns given meaning by a living being. So actually, based on Bayes' definition of information, I can see that every entity, human or non-human, living or non-living, they create or use information in some way within their existence or interactions. The universes of information have shapes many aspects of our discipline, which is mainly known as library and information science, and here in our university as information studies. But however, LIS, I think, does not fully capture the breadth of information related fields. That's why I think Bates highlight in this diagram a more inclusive term as information disciplines, which encompass everything from study of cultural records to sciences of information. In my presentation, I will keep using the widely recognized term of LIS, but I encourage you to consider it as a broad information discipline. Okay, now let's dive into multi-species information science. You have all read this chapter by Bates, title and an introduction to meta theory, theory, and models. This is a fundamental text for framing our information research and also understanding how information is studied from many directions and perspectives. The perspectives are ranged from historical, psychocognitive, like to evolutionary, mathematical, or scientometric. And I think these approaches as meta theories is our way of thinking and working in LIS. And I believe each of you would follow a special approach within your teaching and research. Recently, Marcia Bates, in her keynote at Coley's conference in 2022, she get back to her famous article of meta-theories and presented the research focal point of those information meta-theories. She wanted to show not only the many ways we can look at information, but also the main parts of life that we have studied in our field. Through those different lenses. And this new diagram is, I think it is exactly related to the interconnection of universe of living and the universe of information, which I showed earlier. At the bottom, there is a self, a thinking and a sentient being within a body, existing in a physical ecology shaped by social and cultural elements called society. And on the top, you can see there are more abstract domains in language and intellectual culture, labor as discourse and documentation. The multi-species movement is primarily taking place within the ecological layer. The ecological layer emphasizes on perspectives that is about coexistence, co-evolving, and co-designing. And multi-species turn focuses on the relationships of all entities, organisms within an environment, as well as it pay attention to many of their social and cultural and empathic elements that shape those relationships. All of you knows that many turns have taken place in LIS, even after that famous article of Bates in 2005. And there has been many new established turns that brings a new era in LIS, such as embodiments. I believe that this multi-species movement is driving toward a new era in our field. The first recognition of this multi-species movement could be traced in Jenna Hartel articles about terns in LIS. In this diagram, she presented different terms, but what is interesting for me is her concluding reflections. She mentioned what next turns, she tried to imagine what next turns in information disciplines would look like, and she think of animal turn or a family turn. I think that she was proposing information literature and practices, not only work from human perspective, but try to work from larger assembles that includes human with others. In 2018, even before I came across Jenna's article, I lost my pet dog when I was in Iran. And the experience was not only heartbreaking, but also very transformative for me. It led me to draft a proposal for my future potential doctoral position, which I try to go overseas, exploring what information means in the context of living and bonding with a dog, and how the information artifacts of a human-animal bond remain even after a companion dog is lost. Since then, my ideas have evolved and expanded significantly, which especially after I finished my PhD, and now it is shaping into what is now known as a multi-species information science. I think when we step back and recognize humans and the human engagement with information as part of a larger entanglements, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of that red thread of information that connects all living beings. And there we can find stories not only about humans, but also other life forms, stories that sometimes challenge us, inspire us, and also deepen our understanding of what means to live and learn with others. Multi-species information science, as I mentioned, is just emerging. It's not, well recognized yet. And it tried to move away from the human-centered focus of LIS, and it instead highlights the interconnectedness of human and non-human agents in shaping information ecosystems. It draws ideas from multi-species ethnography, post-humanism, and critical animal studies, and it tried to emphasize on relationships between humans, animals, plants, microbes, landscapes, and even technologies. And it reframe how we define information actor. I mean, how we give agency in information world. In this perspective, entities within a group become companion species that provide and use information, and it's advocate for ethical practices and try to make deeper understanding across different species. It also have some philosophical roots in questioning the moral status of animals and advocating for compassion based on the whole nature capacity to suffer. It recognizes animals as, if any of us recognize animals as sentient beings, beings with feelings, thoughts, meaningful actions, subject to change through interactions with information. So I think they deserve ethical consideration in LIS. And as such, we must see ourselves as similar to, not in contracts with non-human animals, and break our borders between nature and society, the borders we have in our study between mind and body, and moving away from treating animals as an objects. Here, I'd like also to emphasize that multi-species aligns with indigenous knowledge, not their knowledge systems, which emphasize the interconnectedness of living beings. In those systems, knowledge is often tied to human as part of bigger contexts, such as the people relationship to river, mountain, and their lands. My doctoral research was first empirical study information science that adopted this multi-species perspective. Since then, I have extracted 5 articles aiming to introduce this perspective to the field. One of them explores something like habits, routines, instincts, memories, and imaginations which share between a human and a companion animal. While some of the other articles, they examine around affective information exchange. It tried to show that emotional experiences and agency of animals in shaping human information practices. There are also methodological papers, which I try to bring a multi-species into the picture. In all of these papers, I argue that information with animals is defined mostly by our connections, like living or loving or even learning with them, and it's really expand beyond human speech. Unlike many other social sciences and humanities, I think LIS should have long ago embraced this perspective of multi-species, given many compelling traces of this shift in our literature. However, in comparison to other humanities and social sciences, LIS really has been slow to develop in this direction. To highlight the connection between animals and information, I am currently exploring a broad range of information science theories that welcome animals into the field. And I have a research question which I'm following now is about where are the animals in information science? So from now, I'm taking you to the historical journey which I'm now following that try to trace the role of animals in LIS. And throughout this history, the world around us, I think, has shaped many of the ideas of many of the documentalists, archivists, and information scientists. And some of the most famous thinkers in the field have looked at animals, and they turn to animals for many inspiration. And one of the main example I can say is the European documentation movement, which I think it's make a principle action. I mean, it is what our modern library and information science made of. So one notable example is in 1951 by the Madame of Documentation, I mean Susan Bruyette, and her famous question is, as she asked, is antelope a document? I mean, with this statement, Bruyette challenged the traditional view of documents in those time, which it was only static words and numbers, but she was trying to show that documents is related to the living world. It encompasses objects like sculptures, like medals, like even an antelope in a zoo. Bruyette's concept of the antelope illustrate that animals become document when they place in a classification systems like a museum. Even Mike Buckland reflects on Bruyette antelope, and in his paper, he recalls a personal memory. Before learning about Bruyette antelope, he said that he was visiting a museum and questioning why preserved birds were displayed in this valuable space. But as a librarian, however, he came to view these birds as resources for learning and research, much like books on a library shelf. And this shift in the perspectives help him to connect collection-based services like libraries, museums, and archives, which now we call as and also galleries, in organizing human knowledge. Buckland also criticized on the idea of sameness in information studies, emphasized that documents like the antelope are never context-free, and the meaning changed when moved from one setting to another. And this idea really later expand his famous concepts of information as thing, which is very famous in our understanding of what is information. In America, I found that Pierce Butler was also a key figure in LIS in North America, and he authored the first North American LIS textbook, An Introduction to Library Science. Butler introduced a conceptual framework of scholarship, which he saw as encompassing the documentary universe. At the core of this framework is cosmic phenomena, a category that includes not only human activities, but also biological processes and animals. Butler's discussion of animals is not extensive, but I think it is notable that he placed them at the center of his vision, highlighting their importance in our natural and intellectual order. In 1946, Robert Payet, he joined the documentation program founded by Susan Bruyette. In his article of documentary transformations and cultural context, he expands on Briette's idea using a gorilla in a cage. The antelope has become iconic in LIS, I think, but the gorilla example is less recognized. And Payet distinguished between unique objects and specimens representing a type. I mean that he shows that a gorilla is a primary document when viewed as an individual, but it becomes a specimen representing its species when seen through the lens of classification. He brought this duality between the tension between individuality and classification in animals or objects or anything. Even Ronald Day expanded Payet's concept of the gorilla recently as auto-documentation by introducing the idea of powerful particulars. And he said that entities like gorilla, even trees, even bacteria, everything are not just subject to documentation, but also self-documenting themselves through their actions and entire ecosystems. And they can think and express themselves. This view is really changing the documentation studies. One other example is from Nord, which recently he explores a similar tension through the case of Ishi. He is the last known member of the Yahi people, an indigenous group used to live in Northern California. He studies the documentality of Ishi, and Nord illustrates that Ishi's identity changed based on, oh, I think the alarms comes up.
Can
other people hear the alarm if they're in Bathurst?
I think Tina might heard it the same. Should we leave the session?
Yes,
Tina?
I think so. I heard an
Okay.
auto.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
yes,
really
it
sorry
happened.
for this.
It happened to building 1213, 1214 here in Bathurst at 10 o'clock. So it might be for you at 12:15.
Has
So
it
you might
stopped?
need to leave. Yeah.
Is it still going?
Through?
Yes.
It's still
Oh
going.
yeah, it's a
Okay.
test.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you
well-
just, we could wait. You could just go just to be safe, and we just wait on our systems, and maybe you're back on time and continue.
Okay.
Maybe
so
it will
we
take
pause.
10 to 15 minutes to come back.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it took for us.
All right. Let's pause the session then,
All right.
and then we'll go. I'll pause the recording as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Come back soon.
See you.
Take care. Take care, guys. I'll
Will
see
do.
you soon.
Yes. See you.